I know. Well, Graham Smith, aka G Smith, welcome to the Boardroom Podcast. Tell my listeners, where does this podcast find you?
It was actually through Wes, but I mean, I've known all about you guys, man, but Wes really introduced us, to you because of, I think it was one of the past comments that you actually made. I can't recall, but he said it was really cool. And he listened into what you were talking about. And he said, wow, this guy's really on the program, and he spoke really highly of Jordy and a couple other things. And Wes said, well, we should reach out to him. I mean, it's just not really often we have someone who gives us this love, so that's where it all started.
Well, that's nice to hear. Now, I've got sort of an off question for you. This guy, Rodriguez, right? The singer Rodriguez. Apparently, yeah. he was a big deal in South Africa. What do you know about this guy?
Plenty. Basically, I'd say it was possibly around about 70, 75 or 72, around that area where one of the South African kind of a surfer, muso, was traveling, and he picked up this, one of the records that was kind of being showcased in one of the LP, because it was all LPs those days, Yeah. And he picked this thing up and he said, wow, this is kind of crazy music. This is unreal. He took it back to South Africa, and he knew someone on the radio, you know what I mean? And they kind of just played one or two of their songs. But I Wonder became one of the biggest hits in South Africa, and it was huge. And I mean, he never came here because I think they kind of didn't want to play that kind of crossover music. Yeah, but he did come to South Africa. I can't remember what date it was or when, but it was in the 80s, and he was a huge hit, And he was. Yeah, we all knew about him, I mean, and it was kind of like surfing music as well, as a little bit more. I wouldn't say it had a reflection of how would you say it? Being biased against black or this or that or whatever. It was just how he was, being. Yeah, it was 1998 actually.
Yeah, do you know he was so? I don't know if you know, but they did a documentary film on this guy.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah,
we won an Academy Award.
Searching for Sugar Man.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I found out about this guy, because here in the States, we had no idea who this guy was. And all my South African friends are like, yeah, he's like Bob Dylan. And we're like, what? I've never heard of the guy.
You're right. He's our Bob Dylan, basically. It was crazy, I think he had most probably 2 or 3 hits on our top 10 in South Africa, top 20.
Yeah,
for sure, 100%. It was an anti-apartheid kind of scenario.
Who is that feeding you all these answers over here in the corner? Is that Wes?
Wow.
Oh, that's your wife.
He was right into it. Yeah, that's Lou.
Oh, hi. How are you, sweetheart? Good to see you. Yeah, good to see you. So let me change tracks here a little bit, G. I'd like to get a little bit of background on you. When did you start surfing? What was your first surfboard?
Well, basically, my dad was kind of like a little bit of a part-time lifeguard, down on the beach. This is going back in, say, 1960 or so, when I was still a super grom, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I got into my brothers, were riding Ken Bens, big Ken Bens. The Woodies were still out then. And then the Ken Ben was kind of like an epoxy bubble foam, which we called it bubble foam, not Styro those days, it was called like a bubble foam.
Yeah.
And then I kind of slowly got into it, but the board was too big and I was too young trying to carry it at 10 years old. And then at around about 13, 14, I was walking down West Street and I bumped into Max Wetland, who had a big wetland surf shop, skate shop, kind of thing, the same as what Zephyr were doing back in the day in California,
Mm-hmm.
And I walked past his shop on a Saturday morning and he said, hey, Grom, you see the road, you see the tea room across the road? And he gave me R1, which was like $1. Go and get us 3 cold drinks and 3 like hot cross buns or something, or Chelsea buns. So I ran across the road, bought them to him, and he's just sitting, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm just going to the beach, checking out the waves. You know, he said, get your ass in here, pick up the broom, start sweeping. You know, it was just, that was it. I just became part of this little shop, and then slowly got involved in de-waxing boards. All the boards around them were 9-footers and 8-footers, you know.
Let me ask you this: when you were walking down that street and you just happened to run into Max Wetland, do you think if you were not walking down that street, you'd be in the position you are now, or would you have eventually found your way to the surf and to building surfboards?
I don't think as early as that, but obviously when I got to Standard 5, a lot of kids came and they were living down at Addington Beach. There's particularly 3 guys, Ramy Carrazza, Ricky Botha, and myself and Huey Thompson, who's making surfboards still today, you know, said, you got to come down to the beach and hang out and everything else. And I was going, yeah, you know, I kind of know about surfing and that. But it was more soccer for me because across the road, just up the street from me, was a football field. So we were into playing soccer. It was just so much easier. Everyone had a ball and all you had to do is have boots. Yeah. And you could go play soccer. But a surfboard you needed to have was probably 50 Rand, which was like $5, you know, to buy a board. Are you that crazy? No one had that kind of money, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I might have got into it, but he definitely paved the way for me, Max Wetland, 100%.
Tell me a bit about Max. He was, I understand he was sort of, well, he was your shaping mentor, right? What was he like as a human being, as a boss, as a board manufacturer in South Africa? Is there a guy here you could compare him to?
Yeah, he was the Mickey Dora for sure. He was the Mickey Dora, but of surfing, and he was in the South African team. You know, he went to California with a guy, Ant van der Hevel, who won an event in America. I actually have his surfboard, his longboard at my factory, which is number 58, and they created this Ant van der Hevel model kind of thing. But Max was an innovator for sure. You know, he had George Thompson. I'm sure you might have heard of George Thompson. There was Mac Wetland, Robert McWade. All these guys were part of this crew that traveled all over the world. And then they were invited by Bud Brown. And then when they came to South Africa to do Endless Summer. So Bud Brown and them all knew about who Max Wetland was, you know what I mean, in a big way. Sure. Yeah. And obviously it was John Whitmore from Cape Town, you know.
Yeah.
And Max was the guy in Durban. Max Wetland was the founder of Wetland Surfboards, you know, really down to. He was partially, I think, one of the Red Indian. He was obviously his family came from Wetland. That's where his name from, Canada, the Wetlands. Yeah. You know, the Wetlands was a Red Indian. I don't know if it was Cherokee. I think he was partially Cherokee. So, and then he went back to in that whole apartheid regime that came around the 82s, 83, 85. Max said, shit, let me get out here and go back home to Canada. And he spent another 10, 12 years there. But he just wanted to get back to surf, you know what I mean? And he returned to South Africa. And he returned to South Africa basically because Midget Farrelly and him were really well connected, because they used to hang together at the world events. You know, in Punta Rocas in Peru, they had one of the world events, and obviously back in California, all over the world and I mean, basically they went to these events, Australia. So when he went back to South Africa with Midget, they introduced phenolic foam, and that's what got him back into manufacturing surfboards again and blowing blanks, which was his passion. He's still part of the surf blanks. I mean, he's dead now, rest his soul. But his son and his daughters and whatever have taken over the business of blowing blanks.
So he was basically blowing the same blanks that Midget was doing in Australia. They were kind of partners.
That was it. He was under their licensee.
Yeah.
Sure. To Surf Blanks Australia. Yeah.
And then as I read through some of your bio, at some point you broke off from Max and started your own label. When did that occur? And what was that like for you? Was that kind of scary, jumping out on your own?
No, for sure. It was. Basically, I was doing some work for Sean Thompson. You know, they were struggling, but because I was still shaping at home in my garden, in my garage, and glassing one or two boards, you know. and I had a little kind of following in my area in Glenwood, which was possibly like 5 or 4 miles from the beach. And I decided to go to Hawaii in 1978, 79. And I was surfing at sunset one day, and Craig Sugarara from Town and Country and Daryl Cow, that were running the Town and Country brand in Pearl Ridge, saw me out at sunset. And when I came in, they said, geez, what board is that? And I said, oh, no, it's one I made in South Africa. Oh, where are you from? You know, this and that. And he said, wow, could I have a ride on it? So I said, yeah, no, take it for a wave. And Craig rode it and someone else rode it. I can't remember who it was. And he came out and said, my God, this thing flies. You know, I said, oh, thanks. He said, do you want to come shape some in my factory? And I said, yeah, I'll come by for sure. And I was like, are you sure you want me to come to your factory? You're like the guru, you know what I mean? I'm just a kook, you know. And I went there, and all the rest is history. That's how I secured Town and Country Surfboards, you know, and was all through Craig Sorora, and obviously with me helping Sean and his father Ernie out with glassing and shaping and getting the factory together.
Yeah.
I ended up taking over the Sean Thompson factory, you know, because I invested and helped them to do the Instinct thing, because that was when Instinct started. And obviously there was a little bit of, I wouldn't say bad vibe between Mark Thompson and Sean, because MT had started the Gotcha.
Yeah.
And that just took off like a rocket, you know.
Yeah.
And Sean wanted to try and do his thing to try and capture. MT didn't worry about the surfboard scene. He worried more or less on the clothing, because he was involved in SA Clothing, and that was quite a big brand. That's where Paul Norday, Mark Price, Mark Savage, all got groomed through Mark Thompson.
Yeah.
You know, he groomed them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And so there was a bit of a sort of family rivalry between Sean and Michael.
100%. Been obviously very competitive, because Sean was the king, you know, with surfing, you know, and Michael was really good. He was a charger, you know. I just don't think he wanted to pursue competitive surfing, but he could surf pipe well. I mean, he got some big backhand barrels back in the day, you know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But with him having his degree, he knew where to go with the clothing. You know, the clothing was really the market. I mean, you know, you only had Sundeck, and you had Hang Ten, and a couple other small little brands, you know, going. I mean, I don't even think Sean Stussy had come on strong there, but Sean was doing boards then, because I was seeing a lot of these Sean Stussy surfboards, which was, he really had a feel and a special look, you know, super appealing.
Yeah, his noses are really, his outlines are really kind of sexy. They've
well,
got an interesting curve.
He had a bit of a wider nose, but the tails worked well, and they kind of templed in, and the templed nose kind of got taken away when he put the beak in. It created that real pronounced beak, way longer than what the lightning bolts were being done, or Brecker boys, or, you know, those kind of guys, or even Con Surfboards was doing, you know. He was another great innovator in surfing, was Con, you know.
Yeah,
Pick Street. I was helping Randall Kim, who was running the Kong show back there in 1980, you know. So it was just this mix and match that I was so fortunate to be at the right time, you know. And then all the action sports shows started to open up in 81, 82, 83, and that became a whole new scene with a Blowout and Gotcha and Craig and Town and Country, and just about every brand was there, you know. That shit started. They didn't last too long, but I'm just saying they tried to get in, you know.
Yeah. What now?
Craig.
So when you met Craig in Hawaii, and you visited his factory there, the Town and Country, so you took the license back to South Africa?
To South Africa, and I kind of said to Craig, this is how you get a franchise going. And he said, yeah, well, you know, could you help me on that? And that's when we started to go and venture out with New Zealand and Australia. And so then I actually formulated that for Craig through Nigel Perro, who's Karen Perro's father, who came to South Africa and started shaping for me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And then that's when I had Tony Surf, come and go through the drill in my factory. And then Tony Surf went back to Australia, and he was working through that with Gunter Rohn. So it was a kind of a small little crew of guys that were really in the industry, but they weren't as big as Bob McTavish, who was in Byron Bay. You know, because Byron Bay was where it was all really getting strong. You know, all the boards were being made in Byron Bay. This is before the Gold Coast started, because on the Gold Coast I was working with Al Byrne. He was burning spears back then.
Yeah.
So and Greg Clough at Pittwater and Sydney. So I had all this access, and I was making Helloas, Talent Countries, burning spears, everything in my factory. Going, oh my God, this is. But it was just so much information, you know. You can't get all that. And then I met Bill Cilia from Nirvana.
Yeah.
And I brought Bill over to South Africa, and we started making Nirvana. And then I met Jim Lucas from Force 9. He was a Cronulla working with Aki. And then I had Aki on the boards with Force 9 and all that sort of stuff.
So you have all these labels going through your factory in in Durban, basically, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
Through that period.
That's quite a lot of business.
Well, we were I was thinking of it to try and be like the Japanese market, but because we had history and we had surf and we all spoke English, it was a different vibe, because Japan was really strong, eh?
Yeah.
Everything was so meticulous and so clean and precision work, you know. It was amazing back then, you know.
Yeah.
Hence Tako Ohara and Kazumi Nakamura doing CHP.
Yep.
Which CHP which was followed through with Tako Ohara and Town and Country, you know. They were the backbone of doing all the clothing.
CHP is still going pretty strong with his kids, I believe.
Yes, with Daisuke.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. We actually just signing a contract now with them, with Smith and their brand, and
cool.
Work through them.
Because
when I met Kazumi in 1982, he asked, gee, could I send Daisuke to you to South Africa? It was a lot cheaper than I'm sending him all the way to try. No one wanted to teach him in America. Not this 13-year-old kid, the 14-year-old kid is going, no, are you mad? So I said, send him to me. I'll look after him. And he came and he stayed here for a year.
Cool.
So, yeah, we taught him everything.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a booth at the last Boardroom show that we did in Tokyo. And the CHP booth had all of this great history in it. It was just lined with cool old photos of basically the CHP brand from start to finish. It was really, really neat.
Pretty sick. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. South Africa has a compulsory military service of 2 years. Is that still happening?
No, not really. It's kind of fell away when it all changed in 1994. Like everything else fell away.
right. Okay, fair enough. For some reason, I thought that was still happening, but I apologize.
Well, I mean, you know, I was doing cadets. We all did cadets at school from down at 6, which is like when you're around 13 years old, 14. And then my junior certificate, I left school having my junior certificate, which is like a standard 8 before you go to college. And I turned 17 on the 2nd of July, and the 4th of July, I was in the army. I was going up to doing my 3 months basic, and then it was going on the border, you know, on the border, because there was so much terrorism going around with all the outside countries of South Africa. You know, no one really knew what was going on. And there was Angola, there was the Kafiri Strip, you know, there was Rhodesian border, all this nonsense.
Was it scary?
Yeah, it was pretty scary. I mean, it was life and death, definitely. And then I had to do camps for 10 years after that. So from 17 to 27, I had to do 10 years of camps, 3 weeks at a time, just to get you tuned up again, your gun and this and different rifles and all the rest of it, you know.
Wow. Fascinating. It's kind of interesting. Tell me about, you know probably better than most how South African surfers felt regarding when Tom Carroll in 1985 and Martin Potter in 1985 boycotted the South African surfing competitions. As a South African surfer, what was the feeling on the ground there on the beaches regarding that boycott by Tom and Martin and those other guys?
It was very sad, because I think for Sean, they kind of boycotted Sean because he was the guy. He was the strong, articulate, well-groomed, short-haired, well-mannered surfer. And it kind of stopped his role in trying to be what he wanted to be, to try and get a world title back again, and he couldn't, obviously, because they wouldn't allow him to go surf Japan. He couldn't travel anywhere in the world. It was pretty hectic for him, I think, And we had a lot of the younger surfers wanting to go through, which was obviously the Mark Price and those kids were also on tour, And we had Gavin Rudolph, we had Jonathan Palm, and we had plenty. Mark Lamont, sure you've heard of Mark Lamont. He did the Lightning Bolt in South Africa.
Yeah.
So it was talked about that because we weren't really like rugby or football, it wasn't really, the strength wasn't really there in our sports as such. It was our own doing to get it, our own fundraising, you know what I mean, to get our surfers out of the country. It wasn't supported by the government as much back then,
But what about your local crew, like the guys that you're surfing with? Like, is the general feeling on the beach in 1985 sort of for what Tom Carroll and Martin Potter were doing, or was it for Sean Thompson's viewpoint on this situation?
No, for Sean, 100%.
Yeah.
We were pretty pissed off that the Bronzed Aussies had created this whole thing, and Tom had spoken out, pretty loud and vigorous, regarding what's going on here and everything else, which kind of suppressed us because we were doing surfboards that our Africans were earning good money. Yeah. They didn't really look at the surfing industry as such. They looked at political industry, which was either in mass production, coal, gold mining, metal industry, building industry, that sort of thing. Our guys that were working for us, our artisans, which were Africans, of course, were thoroughly so stoked because they weren't on the same tier salary-wise as what it would be if they were working in the gold mine. That's where it was all happening. That big industry, the steel industry. But the surf industry was small, but we were looking after our guys 100%. You know what I'm saying? They were getting good salaries. So we were a super minority, we weren't the majority,
But was the boycott by those pro surfers, did it hurt the small little surfboard industry there, or did it not even make a difference?
No, it did, because it stopped all our exports.
Right.
You see, it suppressed us on our exports. So we didn't have thousands of surfers like you guys had in America, Australia. Yeah. So we relied on the exports, and we still do today. In a big way, we still do today in a big way. But
have you recovered from that? Has the surfboard manufacturing industry in South Africa recovered from that yet? Do you think?
No, it has, and we owe it to you guys for sure. We owe it to the global dollar rand, because our rand is so weak, and it obviously gives us a lot more opportunity where guys can get boards for a little bit cheaper. Yeah. And our quality is good. We speak the same language, So
sort of. Hey, let me ask you about this. We'll go from, say, 1978 through to 85, and now we're in 1988, and this is the year that Jordy, your son, is born. And Jordy quickly became sort of, and I don't mean to put words into your situation here, but tell me about Jordy as a source of feedback for your surfboards.
Jordy
as a young kid.
Yeah, Jordy played a huge part because he spent so much time in the factory, from 4, 5, 6 years old, 7 years old. He made the Natal team at 6 years old, and at 7 he was really surfing under 10s. And when he got to around about 12, 13, it's when it really started to notice the difference, when he started popping airs and really maturing well, in a mature way where he could compete against 16 and 18-year-olds, which is our junior team, you know, and this kid was only 13. And obviously Pierre Tosti and a lot of like guys that came and stayed with us was Jeff Booth, Tom Curran, I mean, you know, and obviously Potts and that. They sort of said, Jordy's definitely got something. Gee, this guy's definitely got he's a natural kid. He's got a gift, you know. You got to nurture that, you know. And then Jordy's obviously with him riding the shorter boards, he would say to me, Dad, make the tail a little bit wider or do this or do that. And it kind of went well until I think 2003 at 15 when he won the ISA World Games. And that's when, you know, he really said, Dad, you got to do this, you got to work on that, you got to work on this. And then that year, I'd say from 15 to 16 and a half, when he went to Australia, and then obviously JS had seen him and DHD, and they were like on him, you know what I mean? Because we spent spent 3 months a year in Australia since he was 11 years old, every year, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'd be taking him to America, to Hawaii, and then to Australia for 3 months. That went on for 7 years in a row.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This kid didn't go to school or anything and spend 5 months away from home.
What was it like when he came to you and he basically said, Dad, you know, I love you, but I want to ride some other boards. Was that a tough situation for you?
Well, it was. I had to swallow it, you know, but you know what? I wanted what Jordy wanted.
Yeah.
And that's why that relationship went that well with him, because it was about him winning and not about, and I didn't care what product it was as long as you won on those, on someone else. I didn't even mind it was. But he always came back and said, have a good look at this. Let's stand this. Make sure this thing, I don't make it. And he'd ride it and he'd go, yeah, it's not bad, you know. And I'd say, what the shit is it? You know? But you had to hold back, you know. You know, it was tough. It was tough to swallow, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you have a look at the past history, there would be, what's that, babe? Oh yeah, no, because he was riding those boards, and he brought them back to the factory, and we kind of went through scanning them and that, you know, and the kids came. They all those South Africans rode my boards. They were going, hey, gee, that's what actually kept us going so well, because they knew what the Jordy thing was all about, you know, and it possibly putting him on the map on a global sense as well with JS. It opened up a lot of doors for him, you know, the sponsorship game, and a lot more attention was paid to Jordy, you know.
Yeah, it was for sure the smart thing to do. I'm always wondering what that conversation was like between you and him when he was basically.
I knew Sam Egan well, Luke's dad. We showed boards together.
Same thing, right? Same thing happened to him.
I knew Shane Steadman well.
Right.
He was Luke Steadman's dad. We did the same thing to him, and Miguel Pupo's dad. All these people going, we're all sitting down going, he's my fucking kid riding this other board. What do we do? So they all went through it, you know.
Yeah.
It was like, you gotta let it go, just let it go, you know.
Have you ever had a full-on like punch out with your son?
Never.
No.
Never. He had hidings until 17 years old with a belt.
Yeah.
So he knew. I mean, you know, him and Damien Farron fought. We were in Australia.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to have gone to the 3 Degrees premiere. I'm all dressed in my suit waiting, and these 2 kids are still surfing. Well, they got out the water, and I hid behind the shower. This is in Australia.
Yeah.
And I went and I broke a branch off a tree, took all the leaves off, like a long 2-meter stick.
Yeah.
And they were in the shower looking for me, going, oh my God, where's Dad? With your old man. I ran out and I whacked these kids. I had the whole of the freaking life-saving thing scream and yell, what the hell do you think you're doing, mate? Challenging me, coming downstairs. And I said, shut the fuck up, you next. Anyway, I was tanning these guys on the arse with the stick because they were late.
Oh, that's classic. That's so good. I'm going to give you one of my opinions, and I'd like you to tell me what you think about this, and I could be full of it. But a couple of years ago, basically Jordy was jumping around on a bunch of different boards. That's what it looked like to me. Like he was riding Channel Islands, he was riding some Mayhems, He was riding boards by other guys, and it felt like he was jumping around too much, and it was affecting his performance. What do you think of this opinion of mine?
It's a true point, because if you think about it, Kelly won 11 titles on one brand.
Exactly.
Carl Parkinson won it on one brand. Mick won it on one brand. This is proof is in the pudding, because you get behind your shaper, you know. Once it becomes, if you're doing this, if you want to get a world title and money is your objective, you're never going to get a world title. You know, your world title should be from your heart, is what you want to win, even if you're making not a dime. You know, it's for yourself, you know. And I mean, Taj jumped around a lot as well, you know what I mean? And
exactly.
He had 4 seconds. Jordy's had 3 seconds. You can get so close, you know, but it's so crucial. It's such a fine line that you know your equipment, you know. I think with CR, we had a chance, but I think it was right to when Al was at the end of his peak, you know, so we missed out. And then we had Brett, or we had some other shaper try and do this thing for him, and there was a lot of confusion. So I think if Jordy had stuck with maybe with the JS scenario, it might have been a little bit better for him. But JS couldn't do a small wave board to work at trestles. And that's why he jumped onto the CR program and the Mayhem program, because those were Californian boards, had a little bit of a flatter entry rocker, but there was some spark in those boards. It definitely made a difference. And with Jordy's weight, I noticed it got him up quick and planing quicker, you know. And that's why he stuck on that flyer that he had. He won. That flyer made him probably $350,000 on winning alone. You know, it's crazy, you know. And JS trying to make him one and copy. It's never the same. You can't think like another shaper. You know, your mindset to putting it to their hands isn't exact the same. It just, you know.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, the concept of a magic surfboard. I've had one, you've had one, we've all had them, and we've all tried to have them replicated. Why is it that we can't get a magic board replicated, in your opinion?
Well, it's because of the shaper's, the communication between the shaper's mind, what he's seeing, and how the hand connects is a big thing. Those are the 3 components, you know, what you see and what you're thinking and how you're applying it with your hands. How many times you pull that rail, how many times you cross sweep on the bottom deck, you know. The top deck doesn't really matter. It's not that much. It's not that important. You know, 100 waves on the top deck. It's all your bottom, your curve, your entry, and the exit. You know, that's what makes it happen. You know?
What about the variables in the stringer? The wood and the stringer. Do you think the flex has effect?
I only have stringers. I don't agree in all this stringerless and you're putting carbon on. It's not the same. The difference with the stringer is that the recoil flex pattern of your stringer will bring it back to its true cut of the file. That's my belief. Once you stick some funny little spine tech on the top deck where it's doing nothing, it should be stuck on the bottom. I can't understand why it's on the top, you know, because it's got to push back down to get its true flex. That sounds, you know, to me, it's not, I don't, you know, it's just my opinion. But even with all Jordy's epoxies, we're always putting in a 3mm stringer. And strangely enough, Merrick did that for Jordy on the epoxy when I said to them, don't do a stringless, just use a 3mm stringer. And when we were designing the rookie, that's how the rookie came about. So after a while, Al asked us to pop in, so we popped in. And then he said, gee, look, we want to design a new board for Jordy, you know, on the thing. What do you suggest? So I had made up a rocker stick, and I'd taken that rocker stick off the JS. And I went into Al and I asked him, can you cut me four boards? These are the measurements I gave you, and that's the rocker I gave you. And Al cut them, and he said, have a look at these. And I lifted them up and I said, they don't look the same. These two look kind of close. He said, no, they're all the same. They're all the same. We'll work a template. I said, hang on. And I walked out and I came out with this rocker stick on my shoulders. Well, everyone, oh my God, now we had shit, you know, because Al doesn't believe in rocker sticks, you know. And then I stuck these rocker sticks, and the conversation came up when he had, and I didn't know this, but all behind me were all the shapers, 6 of them, including them was Davy Smith.
Yeah.
And I put the rocker stick and I said, now this rocker stick reminds me of when I was in Cali in 79 or no, in 82. And I was watching this kid surf, and his name was Davy Smith. And this kid blew me away. And they all laughed, and I turned around and I said, what's so funny? He said, this is Davy Smith here, the same guy you're talking about. And I went, oh my God. And so, I mean, and I said, well, I looked at that guy's board, and this rocker was partially of that era, because he was popping ears all over the show.
Yeah.
This kid, Davy Smith, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so Al, he had a look at it, and he said, okay, we'll have another 2 cut. And we put the rocker stick on, and that's how we generated having the rookie. And I asked him to go and get a template from Sonny Garcia that was staying with me from a 1986 wooden template. It was a 6'2", Sonny Garcia, because Sonny was a big guy in 84, 85. And he brought that template down, and I turned the template around where we used the nose to map out all the measurements that I had done on this new board that we're designing, and everyone met. And that's where Al got the template. We used the nose template for that board.
Oh,
crazy. Cool. It was and I mean, all those guys were there, and that's how we called it they called it the rookie.
Wow, fascinating.
So,
and Jordy,
you know,
Jordy's just purely riding Smith shapes.
Yeah, no, he's riding Smith shapes. He's still got a few of the galleys, because galley was going to be part of our whole Smith shapes. What we wanted to do, we wanted to visions of inviting shapers to be able to, from different zones, different areas, different countries, to be part of this whole program. Because my vision was, if it's going to be someone in Brazil, I don't want it to be I'm the guy, because I'm not the guy.
Right.
Jordy's the guy. It's our brand, but introduce a Brazilian shaper and be honest about it, and give him the opportunities to be riding alongside with the brand. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Want it to be a secret and have all this underground. Why would we want to do that, Jordy? And he said, no, that's cool, Dad. So we invited Gally to be part of that crew.
Yeah.
And we paid Gally up front $10,000 for him to do the first 200 boards, you know, with the Smith brand on and everything else. And we got a couple of models and that, but I think Gally got cold feet, and he maybe he was going through some family crisis or whatever. Yeah. And we kind of just let it ride. And Jordy said, Dad, that's not really working out. And I said, well, that's fine. You know, if that's what it's going to be. But we got Chris Bost, who's also doing boards, you know, and he's helping us with a few. And
cool. So Borst is doing the boards in California?
Yeah, well, we've been trying to work through him as well. Jordy said, once I can get back there, we'll try and work through him. Yeah. And we've been working through Timmy Patterson as well, you know. Yeah. He's just down the street from Jordy. Jordy did a few boards there, because Jordy's jumped back into the shaping bay himself, and he's ghosting a few.
Oh, really? Wow, that's pretty cool.
That's cool, you know.
So I ordered a board from you. Who's the guy that's going to be finishing my board? Do you know?
Sean from Maloa, down in Maloa. Yeah, he's great. He must probably been doing a couple of hundred for us now. So I've got him tuned in, you know, and then we work on your file personally. I do the file, I send it to him, and then he goes to bed. I want to get over there, you know. As soon as I can get to friggin' Cali, you know, I've got to be able to spend, there's probably 6 months a year there, you know. Yeah. Just growing the brand and not sending out the wrong information. We want it to be a reflection of the brand. Right?
When do you get have you fully been vaccinated, or you just got one shot?
No, I just got the 5-in-1 flu shot, and now I've applied for the vaccine shot, and now I'm online, and they'll let me know soon. And as soon as that happens, I'm sure I'll be able to travel to Cali. Yeah, all the over 60s, all those old buddies.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, I see you, bro. Hey, so do you think you'll make it to the Boardroom show out here in Southern California in October?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
That's a
cool,
must.
cool,
That's a
cool.
must for sure. You
Look,
want to do
George.
something nice and cool and, try and exhibit or whatever, try and
Yeah,
be at one of the shows, that's gonna be
I
our
think
thing.
JT at Dark Arts has got you set up with your
Yeah.
a booth next to his. Tell me about
Yeah.
the Dark Arts collaboration. How's that going for you?
No, I think that's great. I think they've done a great thing, the Dark Arts. It's a different vibe, you can see the whole all black skins, with them just being the carbon. They've had to do a little bit of mix up, put a bit of red in there or
Yeah,
blue.
yeah,
It's just too
it's different.
blah. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Make it a little bit different,
yeah,
which is cool. I liked how they did the whole rail thing with Taj. That was pretty cool.
yeah.
I just didn't feel that a 5'7". I thought it was for a little Mickey Mouse guy to ride it. You know what I mean? I thought he's gonna ride a 5'7". It's crazy. It would have been way better if they just stuck to 5'9" or 5'10", because it would have been a better feel. Because the 5'7", you can't really open up the curve. You
Yeah,
could imagine opposed to a 5'10".
right.
You just got no rail on a 5'7", 5'6". It's fine if it's a little fishy because you're squirming all over the show, But Taj was riding quite significant waves, you know what I mean? To be able to do raps and that.
What do you think they could do for the Stab in the Dark series to make it a little bit, and I don't want to say better, but to make it different, maybe to make it better, to change it up a little bit? Have you thought at all about what they could do to make it a bit different?
Yeah, I think they should. I think they should introduce something to do with the Groms, like a real proper um, Grom challenge or Grom shootout or something,
Yeah,
not only concentrate on just the older guys, because our younger guys are really our future,
yeah,
I think, these little 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds, more categorizing the guys, and then try and pull in someone from, because there's been nothing much on the QS, try and get a QS surfer, someone
yeah,
a little bit more in the line of 5 or 6 guys doing a shootout, and the same as would be like the Young Guns. The Young Guns was a real successful thing that they did on the Quicksilver thing,
yeah, yeah,
a little bit more that kind of thing, because that's really our stepping stone, of youth that's growing through, and those guys are ripping at 16 and 15 and 14, they're shredding, I think,
what about this idea? What about if we took the Stab in the Dark thing, and instead of always going with like Mayhem and JS and DHD and Pizel, we put, say, 20 shapers' names in a hat that are just whoever, like just guys from around here, guys where you live, just good, solid shapers, but don't have the name cachet that some of these big brands have. Put those names in a hat and just randomly draw, say, 6 of them. Could you imagine what that would do if we had Jordy and a Stab in the Dark thing riding boards by guys that you and I, we might have heard of them, but they're not the name guys? That would really generate a lot of buzz for some of these guys who are very talented shapers, but don't have the cachet.
Well, I think everyone's just trying to protect their little
Yeah,
show that they have. I mean, we can see it off the cuff. I mean, why should it be four Stab in the Darks and it's always Parzel, it's always Mayhem, it's the same drill. I mean, CR kind of moved away from it. They didn't want to be a part of it, That's why they had to bring Timmy Patterson in, or ourselves, I think the Dark Arts had to invite us because they're making our brand. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I agree 100%. There's so much talent out there.
Yeah.
I mean, look how Kelly discovered Tomo.
Yeah.
Tomo wasn't even on the map until he's gone down surfing down the coast at Kingscliff, and he sees this door-looking board with a big V cut out the back like a Vanguard. He goes, "Yeah, dude, what is this?" He says, "Oh, it's just what I do. This is my thing." He goes, "Can I have a ride on this thing?" "Yeah, take it for a ride." Kelly went, "Oh my God, this thing flies." You know what I mean? This guy, and he heads it. "Okay, do you want to come back to my place?" And then Kelly got under his wing.
Yeah.
I mean, Kelly basically, I wouldn't say he's prostituted all these shapers, but he's tapped onto Tomo, and then he's tapped onto Weber, and now George Greeno, and then Takora. He's not even a shaper.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's saying his name,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and he's done amazing. Believe you me, he's done amazing with sales, and I know a lot of Californians hate him because he's the pop-out master, you know. And it just shows you that fine line between everyone's saying you've got to pay attention to finer detail, you know, it's not going to go. Well, there's these kids jumping on these boards and ripping the shit out of these things that are just pop-outs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it means it's all about the talent, the surfer.
Yeah.
90% is the surfer. 10% is the board, you know?
Yeah. And then, as you know, too, the number of surfers out here that are capable of understanding the nuance between a 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch of tail rocker. There aren't, most of us are just happy to paddle around and catch a wave.
100%. Hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah.
They're never going to be able to do the move John, Jordy, Kelly, and all them do anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Are you keen on, do you watch a lot of the WSL competitions?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah, of course.
Because we have a few youngsters competing, you know. We obviously have Matt McGilvray and Jordy on the CT, and then we got our own guys that are traveling around the whole world. We've got about 4 or 5 kids on our brand. We're helping them get to where they're getting. And so we've got to pay attention to that, you know. And I do a bit of coaching, a bit of mentoring, you know, so.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about where Jordy's at this year on tour. He's got a 5th place at Pipe, and he's got 2 9th places now on the East Coast of Australia. Understanding that Jordy's a big guy, and those waves at Newcastle and Narrabeen were pretty small. How do you think Jordy, and you probably speak to him, but how does Jordy feel with 2 9th places on the East Coast of Australia?
I don't think it's the 9th places. I think it's losing to he lost to.
Yeah.
And more so than anything. And then really realizing giving up the opportunity that he should have really had and capitalized on it, you know. Because it was so much heat on, heat off. And I think in my sense, he was a little bit lonely. He really never really had a sparring partner with him. It's his little kid, 4 or 5 months old baby, his wife, and himself, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been a little bit better for him to have had a sparring partner with him, to go down with your 3 boards. He takes one out. He's having 5 waves on that one. I'm paddling out the other one. We're changing. I'm coming in, picking the other board. He's having another 5 waves. Then we're going out there. We've got someone on the beach riding down. One's catching a little bit on the lefts. That one's going better on the rights. And that one's the AB board, which is for both back side and front side. Now, there was only predominantly rights in the beginning, but there were a few lefts, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At Narrabeen, but not at Newcastle.
Yeah.
And it was all off the reef. So I think in his heat against Connor, it was about anchoring. You need to anchor and dance with your partner. Stick to him like glue, hold the inside, and don't try and create, because there's nothing significant coming past 2.5 foot wave. You know what I'm trying to say? It was, you had to stick to not trying to create a 6 out of a 3. It wasn't going to happen because the judges weren't going to give it to you. They were particularly, I noticed, the best wave. Whether you surfed it to its fullest capacity or didn't, the best wave counted. It was more selection of a better wave. You know, I still feel that he got robbed, that Connor never got the score on that last wave. Yeah. And they kind of just kept Jordy under a bit, you know, on his scores. He did off the tops and what he did. But it is what it is, you know. I still feel that he should have controlled the heat better. Yeah. That's all it was. That's all I told him, basically.
His actual surfing looked really good. It looked real sparky. It looked as good as it's ever been, if not as good as it's ever been.
I think, he was way more sparky. Yeah. Definitely. Just you had to be on the 2 best waves.
Exactly.
To make a difference. That was all it, you know.
Yeah. Well, look, now he's at 7th place overall. His rank is 7th. In my opinion, it's kind of a good place to be. He got through sort of the crappy surf.
Yeah.
He's going to Western Oz. Hopefully the waves are bigger. He's going to have more opportunity to perform some big power surfing that he's known for, as well as his aerial game.
Yeah.
In 7th place, he's kind of under the radar. The conventional wisdom is everyone's talking Gabe, everyone's talking Idolo, everyone's talking Morgan Sibilic. Jordy's not in the conversation, so to speak, and I think that's a good place for him. What are your thoughts on this?
No, 100%. Like I said to him this morning, I said, I feel it's better because we slipstreaming. Let's just slipstream behind them. You know what I mean? Wait our turn, and then we can overtake. You know, at the moment, you don't want to have the target on your back. You know what I'm trying to say? You know, let all that conversation go and then strike. You know what I mean? Let's hope he'll strike back for sure. He's got the equipment. He knows Margaret's well. You see, Margaret's, it's a bigger wave. There's way more opportunities, you know. You can take the first one or the second one or the last one. It doesn't matter. You can manufacture a score. Yeah. That's the difference. Where these two events were, it was pretty hard to manufacture a score unless he went to the air. Yeah. I mean, if it made that air, he would have got a 9.5 flat out. But it's just that the wave disappointed. There was just nothing at the end of the wave. It had run into deep water. He needed to have punted, was probably 3 meters prior to that, to land and to give him some push. But where he landed, it was just cushioning and there's nothing there, you know?
Yeah.
So
how does looking forward after the 2 events in Western Australia, would 5th place or better be positives for Jordy, do you think?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. You've got to be in the conversation, like you said. You've got to try to be around about the 4th or 5th, because I think 1, 2, and 3 are going to be that far ahead.
Yeah.
Remember, we already got Italo and them sitting at 15,000 points ahead.
Yeah.
So the 1, 2, and 3 is really going to be taken. It's 4th and 5th is going to be the conversation that you're really going to have a stronghold, you know, to keep.
How do you feel about these other events coming on tour, like the event at Barra, and I believe there was a couple of others, but they're slipping my mind right now. But as far as you know, waves that meet Jordy's capacity.
Yeah, no, we're on target there. There's no problem there. I just think the Brazil is going to be a tough, you know, the COVID shit and all this, you know, it's worrisome, you know, it's crazy. I can't even understand.
I can't see Brazil even happening. I don't think they're going to have Brazil.
Why don't they just come to JP? It's the only place that they make money. You know,
it's weird. It's a weird one. And then, you know, Jordy's been outspoken about the Kelly's wave pool in Lemoore. And rightly so. It's not a fun wave to watch as an end user, consumer, a fan. And it's rather, we almost know the outcome before even going there. Yeah. But he's also done well there in the Founders Cup. Jordy did pretty good. The very first sort of test run of that wave competitively. What are your thoughts on that wave as a competition format?
He actually, for a competition format, look, it is what it is. It's not my ideal wave, you know, or whatever, but Jordy doesn't mind it at all. From the Founders Cup, he enjoyed surfing it, and he did what he had to do, the moves, and they did really well. And then when they actually had the CT and they ran that event, he was doing what he's supposed to have done, the airs and everything else. He just didn't get the scores. I'm going, he did an air and Kelly got an 8.5 and Jordy got like a 7.5. I was wondering, what are they looking for? You know, what is this whole, you know, they're not sticking to what they should be stuck in. Then on the backside, he did another nice little air until it got him to a stage where he had to go out his comfort zone and do something extraordinary, and that's when you blow it. You see, to what he sticks to. I mean, he even rode Kelly's boards here; they went really well. I mean, you know, we've actually designed a few boards around that, and he's been testing those, and they go really well. So we have our equipment. So he's really fought. You know, it is what it is, and we've got to do our best. He's got to, you know, although it's not what he really wants, but let's go into it with our mindset with a positive,
Yeah.
thought behind it.
What are your thoughts on the WSL as a whole regarding this whole COVID situation? It's been a tough deal for all of us. How do you think the WSL's performed?
I don't think they've performed well, my honest opinion. I just think that there's been too many ifs and this and that, and I think they've had a bit of pressure, and their other sponsors, their sideline sponsors, have told them, you better get out the gates. You know what I mean? There's all this money involved, and we're having nothing to showcase for it. And this is the outcome of them having to do the event in Hawaii, which was great. I enjoyed PARP, that was great. And then obviously, and exactly the surfers to get to the place through COVID and this testing, and obviously Jordy with his kid and everything else. But I mean, you can't speak for everyone, with Jordy. But I mean, for the WSL, I just feel they just haven't really met the demands that they should have. They should have been a lot tighter. They should have, too much money's spent on just all this harp and shit and all these people running around. I'm going, what are these people getting paid for? And what have they, I mean, what have they got? Jesse Maladaya. I mean, what's the women running our men's show? I mean, what is going on? How did this all come about?
What about?
I'm happy with that. I mean,
Yeah. I'm of the opinion that, and this is purely from an end user, from a fan base point of view, that the WSL should trim the number of surfers on tour. I wouldn't mind if there was 24 or 16 surfers like there used to be, because frankly, the difference between the top 10 and the bottom 22 is significant.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So I don't know why they're fielding so many. And if you remember years back, Kelly wanted to do his thing, where would have just been 16 surfers. It's a shorter event. It's prime time where Jordy's had his heat in the afternoon. In the morning, the guys are standing up getting 10s and 9s and barrels. And then Jordy's heat is late in the afternoon at 3 o'clock, and it's east onshore, and the swells dropped and it's high tide. I mean, it's not fair game. And I know it's an excuse, but everyone should have equal opportunity. How do we get to that equation? By having less surfers,
I'm a believer that the surfers are the waves are the real stars. Let's put the surfers in really good waves, and we'll all be happy. And 16 surfers, I think, would get that done.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. They don't want to kind of stop through 6 heats, and then, I mean, well, if there's 16 heats through the first 8, and then wait the next 8 to do the next 8. They're just trying to run the whole event right through it, and put the women in when the waves were best in the morning, when it was cranking, glassy, and then the men's went in around about 11 o'clock, right up to Jordy's last heat. Well, he won that, thank goodness he won that heat. And then he lost his heat he had 2 heats, late heats in the day, twice in a row. When he was the first heat, the next morning was good against the Brazilian.
Yeah.
My dog just heard your dog.
That sounds like a big mean dog you got there.
Boo. You got, this will eat your leg in half, bite it in half, honestly.
I believe it. It sounds vicious. Oh my. Hey, did you ever see that that documentary about Ginger Baker, the drummer for Cream?
No, but I know who he is.
Yeah, well, he was in South Africa for a while, and he had these Rhodesian Ridgebacks that were pretty powerful dog. Let's get back to this WSL real quick. I was wondering if I was of the opinion that maybe they just take this year off. Do you think they would have been better off just taking it this year off, or is that something they couldn't? Go ahead. What's your opinion on that?
That's exactly what you heard Lou in the background saying. Why the hell didn't they just take this year off?
Yeah.
And there's the Olympics, and there's the ISA World Games. I mean, so Jordy's He's got to leave from there, jump across. They want him to do the ISA World Games. I said, it's impossible. And then we're going to prepare for the Olympics,
Yeah.
So
It's hard to be
I
focused.
agree, 100%. I think the Olympics would have been just the one right there, and it would have been a lot of hype in that, and we would have, created a lot of Instagram stuff and content on social media and that, working towards it. I think that would have been a better golf, definitely, just to have coxed the whole WSL event, for sure.
Yeah. Well, let me talk to you about your surfboards. You've got the Smith Shapes surfboard brand. You've got the High Performance Series, the Fun Performance Series, the Retro Performance Series, and the Wing Series. I was lucky enough to order a Fat Monk model from you. Tell us a little bit about the Fat Monk design and give me some insight into the recent models in the Smith Shapes arsenal.
Well, starting off with the Fat Monk, it's basically, we were working around where Jordy worked towards. He said, we'll do a volume, Dad, because I'm big, and hence the volume of the board. But it was a narrow board. So I said, we can't really make the volume that you're having, George, become a wide board, like a 21 inches wide or something, or 20 and 3/4 or 21, that can accommodate older guys. And we need the area, because area and volume with pressure equals lift and speed. That's the formula, basically.
Yeah.
So we bought out the Fat Monk, and I was doing a lot of work for Simon. I did Simon boards for him and DHD boards through South Africa when they were based.
Mm-hmm.
Hence my one of my email addresses in my factory is Base South Africa 1, because I was part of the base program before they folded.
Right.
So I was doing all the Simon models and the DHD models for them, making the boards for them, sending them to Nicaragua, wherever they weren't reaching, because of a price point. And that's where the Fat Monk came. I kind of emerged one of Simon's kind of models to one of my models, and it became it really worked well, because it's kind of a long straight bottom with a little bit of tail flip and just a gradual entry, but it allows water to come through with nice deep concaves, a little bit of double through the back, and a little bit of more chunkiness under your chest, where majority of the boards were, let's say, hypothetically, 2 inches at 12 thickness in the back, and the fronts were only 1 7/8 inches. Well, we beefed up the front to 2 1/8 to give you more paddle power for the heavier guys. And that's what we did with the Fat Monk, and that's why I'm going to give that to you. And then the tail kicks in a little bit, because they're fast and they got a lot of release in the back. There's no drag on the tail. I want you to have control when you get up to speed. If you start riding something that's a little bit more hollower, go down to blacks, get into one of those nice blacks waves that got a little bit of punch behind them. There's a little bit of reef, Trestles is a bit flatter, but you're still going to need control the trestles if you're riding a good 4 foot day, solid waves,
Sure.
So and then, well, that was the Fat Monk.
Yeah.
But with the Wing series and the Retro series, it was just bringing back the past, because I was in the program. I was making Martin Potter's boards. I discovered Martin Potter at the age of 10. I managed him when he was a young, and then I got him onto Town and Country. So, with Potts came about, even when MR saw him and put him onto his MR twin, Potts just lit up. He was made for that, bro. You can see surfers that are made for those kind of style boards, at 15 and 16 years old. That was a mature surfer. That was a kid who just had the gift, from day one. It's crazy. So, I brought all those experiences that I'd been working through those kids, and then obviously Barton staying with me and me making some boards for Barton and interviewing as a lower. That's how I got hold of Greg Clough. It's bringing those models back, and nothing's really changed. Those bottom decks are all still the same from back then. I might say, oh, this is a new invention. And it's not, Bruce, it's still the 80s. You kidding me? Those were the guys that were doing everything. You know what I'm saying? That was the turn of the century, where the guys stuck to the guns. They had minuscule changes, 1/8 in the tail, 1/8 the nose. They didn't go overboard. because it was all speed, even with Oki, you know, and straight up. When I was working with Cowie Hill, you started straight up surfboards, another Hawaiian surfer, you know.
Yeah.
And the boards were flat, and he was explaining to me, gee, we've got to get this thing. It's just that gradual curve, you know.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
the Black Beauty is one of them from Almeric. That Black Beauty is a replica of that same design, you know.
Yeah.
Just that where the noses got tweaked up a lot more because the guys became to taking off under the lip. That technique that John has brought of taking off under the lip has introduced tube riding to Gabby and all these people.
Yeah.
You could never ride Chopu like that. Now they can.
Yeah.
It's that confidence, a technique of taking off under the lip.
Yeah.
Because you can't take off on top of it. You're going to get freaking pitched. And that's the reasoning why they pull the noses up, because when the nose digs, the curve pulls the board up the face. That's the reasoning behind that. You see?
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. You mentioned,
So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's why I've just kind of gathered and just picked up the past with the new, you know, just trying to stay on a neutral rocker, a neutralized rocker, because our market is you and me and the bigger guys, the guys that are just stoked. All the hyper dudes, they got their own idea. They're going to fly up and fly out the water and do all that stuff, you know.
You mentioned trestles, and it brings me to this point, and then I'll let you go. And I appreciate your time here today. Do you think that trestles is a good way to have the top 5 finish the tour, or wouldn't it be better, in my opinion, if it was at a wave of consequence?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Trestles can be hot and cold, on and off, you know. I think a place in Bali or Indo or somewhere, we know mental-wise, when it's firing, it's firing. There's no excuse.
Yeah.
Then we're going to get a real reflection because everyone's got the same opportunity. It's a rifle range. You take off and it's exact the same. You can see the differences 100%.
Yeah.
It's still going to be potluck at trestles.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a left beating a right-hander or a right beating a left-hander, you know?
Yeah.
If it's Lance's rights, it's all right-handers. There's going to be no excuse.
Yeah.
You know, it's a showdown. It's a shootout, 100%. But I think
Jay Bay would be great.
Oh, Jay would be great. It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely a better reflection because every wall is going to be between 5 and 6 foot. There's no excuse.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. One last question, G. There's going to be 5 guys left at the end of the year. Who are the 5 in your opinion?
Italo, Medina, for sure. Those guys are in. John is my third choice, you know, if he puts it all together. And then hopefully Jordy, but I mean, there's just after those 3, we'll know after these next 2 events for sure. But those 3 are definitely in my opinion, for sure. Yeah. Those 3 are going to be in. Yeah. Medina's so, I mean, you can say Ace is a surgeon, all that. Well, we forgot about Medina. He's a freaking surgeon.
Absolutely.
Surgeon. I'm going, I can't understand what these guys, they're just dragging them into the conversation. I'm going, you kidding me? Yeah. Ace hasn't done an air in any event.
I know. I agree. You know? I love the guy.
I love him too. I'm just going, come on.
You know? I know. I agree. There's literally, I think, a divide between the even within the top 10. I think there's the top 5, and I think the difference between 5 and 6 is very, very big.
Exactly, 100%, 100%. You know, I mean, even you got Morgan coming through strong. Well, let's see now. Look, he can surf. The kid's good. He's good. And I mean, Connor, they're all experiencing. They're all going through the motion. It's just, I just don't think he's a Jordy, unfortunate. You know, not that I want to blow my trumpet for my own kid. You know?
That's what we're here for. Yeah. All right. Well, look, gee, thanks. I'm looking forward to my new board. I'm excited to get it. I'm excited to talk to you about it after I ride it. And I want to thank you for your time and tell your beautiful wife. I thank her for her great insights. I heard most of what she was saying.
Yeah, exactly. I had my earpiece on.
And look, I'll be in touch soon. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
100%. Really stoked. And we'll connect. We'll hook up once I get to Cali for sure.
Yeah,
You know
you're
what I
going to
mean?
be at the boardroom. I'm going to see you at the
Oh,
boardroom.
yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, definitely. It'll be amazing.
All right. Cheers, bro. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. You
Cheers.
take care.
Yeah, buddy.